Well, welcome. I'm on my soapbox now. I'm so passionate. I was just telling Julia, I've been like feeling wonderful lately. And so I think it will come across in my passion and delivery in answering today's Ask and Answered questions. It is Friday. And so we do have our Ask and Answered episode every single week on this day. Thank you to our presenting sponsors. You see them in front of you. They are here and they have helped you endure all that we have had to navigate over the last 18 months. And so thank you to our presenting sponsors. We cannot continue to elevate this conversation around our nation to be of service to our community. So thank you so much. And thank you to Julia for creating this opportunity. Julia C. Patrick is the CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. And I am just so grateful that you had this grandiose idea. Talking about not thinking big, Missy, you were thinking big.
Well, you know what? I'm not that fabulous because in all reality, I was thinking 2 weeks, and we say this a lot in this show, but I really was like, wow, Jarrett Ransom, she's such a sharp gal. Let's get her on 2 weeks. We can chat for 2 weeks. And then, we tell the story all the time. 2 weeks turned into 4 weeks, turned into 6 weeks. I mean, here we are more than a year later. So if I could not do this without Jarrett Ransom, the nonprofit nerd, CEO of the Raven Group, one of the best minds in our nation about all things nonprofit, and that we have her here on the Nonprofit Show is amazing.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and again, I've said this before. The first 2 weeks, it was a little bit of a labor of love. I was feeling the outside forces of what is going on, how do I show up, what do I do? But now is a true, I don't know, so much gratitude for the show, because I start every single day doing an environmental scan in our sector.
Yeah.
Right?
It's remarkable. And boy, if you were able to join us on the Chitty Chat, one of the things, and I would challenge all of our viewers to start looking around. I mean, we're noticing a cadence, an attitude shift, a mindset shift, a little bit of aggression, almost like excited aggression. Like, I'm embracing this recovery. I'm, embracing change. The fear has kind of started to diminish. The excitement's going up. It's fascinating to see. Fascinating to see. So.
I was just laughing because in the corner you could see me pouring my water. So
yeah. Maybe it's Jarrett's gin.
No, it's my big water bottle. So
Lord, you see, yeah. And people are drinking more water. So as my mother says, that's always good. Okay, you ready, sister?
Yes.
You're like, hello, haven't you been listening?
Get me going.
Paula from Kansas City, Missouri. What is the proper verbiage to use in a grant application when a nonprofit is starting up as it concerns finances? They have a minimal budget and do not have an audit. In fact, they can't afford an audit.
That's interesting. Well, and I would say, Paula, you don't need an audit at this time, right? Depending on your financial size, that's really not something that you want to do as a startup nonprofit or really in your early years, unless you do have the big bucks, right? Like 6 figures, looking into growth. So I think when it comes to the proper verbiage, I like to use the word pilot. So if you have results of a program that you've been doing even before you were a registered 501c3 or tax exempt organization, you could still use the verbiage of, we have launched and seen the success of this pilot program using the initial investment of X amount of dollars. And so it shows that, one, this is a tried and true program. You have tested it, right, in a small segment. And then from that, you are forecasting the viability and the scalability and proving the resources, financial resources that you will need. So back to the audit, if the organization or the funder rather is requiring an audit, and you don't have that, I would call them. Right. And you want to have a conversation with them, ask them if you could provide something else like a reviewed financial document or something that has a little bit more cachet or weight than your general, kind of operating budget. But I would use this, Paula, as an opportunity to reach out to the funder, have a conversation, and see if you might be able to apply given your current finances and maybe other documents that you could submit in lieu of an audit.
Right. And I would say that two things. To your point, Jarrett, maybe the reason why it's so important just to call that funder is that this organization, at the point with which they are on the life cycle flow, if you want to call it that, they may not be a candidate because of these things for a grant with this organization. So better to find that out now. This is another reason when I see this, I'm thinking about, fiscal sponsorship. As you're getting going, that might have helped this organization
absolutely
to get some of that girth underneath their foundation. So
we had an episode on fiscal sponsorship. Andrew Schulman is his name. So he was a guest on the show. And I want to say there's more resources on the American Nonprofit Academy website.
I think we have quite a bit. I mean, fiscal sponsorship is one of those untapped gems. Mm-hmm. And it looks to me like for something that's a startup, and I love that you use the word pilot, because that's a sexy word. Everybody loves, a pilot startup. I mean, that comes from the tech world, and that right now is really positive. So yeah, interesting. Okay. Oh, you know how I love name withheld.
Yes, you do.
I do. This is like the best. Okay. Name withheld, Salt Lake City, Utah. We are looking to hire a lobbyist on behalf of our organization. The truth is, we have two separate camps on this issue. Can you give us some perspective? Politics and the nonprofit sector. Dun, 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 dun.
I want you to go, because I don't know that I have an answer. Name withheld.
This is a big issue. So you got to be really, I would love to know what the two camps are saying. More than just yay or nay. This can imperil the 501c3 status. Because if you lobby or if you are engaged in political activity, which you have every right to, you just need to have a little bit different of status. And how you file and who you file with is critical. And it is oftentimes different on a state, obviously, than a federal level. And so this is why it's a big, big deal. And you will have to declare and be very cautious on how you declare what type of lobbyist situations you're involved in. This is why a lot of umbrella groups will have an organization like the Association of Food Banks or the Association of Domestic Violence Shelters or things of that nature within their states, within their regions, that then file all that paperwork and have an umbrella lobbyist. Very rarely have I seen specific nonprofit organizations need a lobbyist. I have seen more sectors need a lobbyist, right? So the difference is ABC, shelter versus all the shelters in 3 states or 1 state or a county. Big investment, big risk, can be big reward if you want to go down that rabbit hole and understand what that looks like. If your organization is vastly involved in government contracts, probably need to look at this. Yeah, if you do not take federal funds and you don't look at any type of municipal to federal contracting, it might not be of value. I don't know. What do you think?
Ditto. I'm not versed in this topic. No, I'm not versed in it. So this is when I say, that's a great question. Let me see what I can find out. So good job, Julia.
This is a big deal. I mean, this is like, this is the life that I worked with quite a bit. And it's fascinating. And the laws are changing. And it is expensive work. It's expensive work. I mean, it doesn't just happen. We had a guest on very early in the
I
show.
was just thinking that, and I can't
Yeah.
recall his name.
So I can't recall that either. And I would say Pam Gaber was another one person that echoed that. And it was like, come up with how to do a visit to your state house, your state legislature, and what you can do. And those organizations that have gone before their legislators and just done a visit, it has been riveting to hear from them. And the fear with which, just enveloped them to go into their Capitol House and make these appointments and how to do it versus, oh my gosh, that was fun. That was great. We shared ideas and the goodwill that it built. I think that's probably a better place to start. And maybe you hire a lobbyist for a short period of time to get that information, but you go from there. Okay, Sharon from Boise, Idaho. You ready?
Yeah.
Should our nonprofit communicate via our communication plan, gotta love that, how we are doing on our strategic plan? For example, should we release the strategic plan and then send press releases and posts to our media page, the scorecard? Wow. Okay, Jarrett.
Talk about disruption.
Oh, I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. So a couple of things. I've worked with several organizations that actually share their strategic plan publicly. Not only when it's asked, but they might actually put it up on their website. So that's something that, again, they've made it accessible for others to see. I just did a workshop.
Wait, I have a question. First of all, what do you think about that? I mean, do you like that? I mean, do you advise your clients to do that?
I don't advise them to do it or not do it, but I've seen it done.
Okay.
And I like it, right? So as a sleuth, and Tony Bell with Fundraising Academy, he's shared with us how you can prospect research, how you can really see, some public information and documents that are out there. I do like to pull up, organizations 990s, go to their website, see what they have on the website. If they have their strategic plan, great. You better believe it that I'm going to open it and see what they're working towards, right? What are their priorities? And so I don't say yay or nay, but I have seen it in particular with my government clients, right? Because this is something that they really do want to have open to their audience community. And that is something that, they then want it to be very pretty, very, aesthetically pleasing with some iconography and images of the community and things like that. So that is pretty cool. I haven't really seen press releases related to this, so I'm curious if the publishing mind over there on the other side of this camera, what you have seen in that.
I've never seen anyone do that other than this is why I think you need to have that internal media page. So if you feel compelled to talk about this, and that's great. I love what you just said. If you are an organization that's engaged in government contracting, then yeah, it makes sense. This is like the perfect post.
Yeah.
To say, this is what we did. This was who was on the committee. We're excited. We're, moving forward. You don't have to be specific necessarily. But I also kind of like the idea that it could be used in fundraising to say, look, this is where we want to go. And this is where what we need to get there versus just you're buying a building this week. It's like, no, we've been working at buying a building. You know what I'm saying? So,
it definitely helps you celebrate and share your story and your accomplishments with your community. But it also in that, kind of statement that you just shared, Julia, it also helps the community celebrate the solution to the problem, right? So if you did buy a building, or if you did expand a program, or if you did, accomplish something within your strategic plan, there's an opportunity to share that. And that's where I think the press release comes in, right? Is that, for instance, I'm writing a press release now for one of my clients stating that, 8 students have been identified and $40,000 will be awarded. Those are the kind of accomplishments, that you want to share, but you want to name the 8 students and you want to name, really that impact. So I think the name was Sharon. And so if that's something that speaks to you by way of how might you incorporate your accomplishments of your strategic plan into your communications? Look at it that way.
Yeah, I agree. And never, never look at this without what the multiple uses are. So, have that media page on your site, post it to LinkedIn, post it to, link back through your Twitter feed. Make sure that you are pulling this through on your various social media outlets, because otherwise you're doing a one-shot deal.
That's where I've learned so much from you, Julia. And you use it really in the kitchen as an analogy. It's like, don't make hamburgers on Monday without expecting meatloaf on Thursday.
Yeah, it's true. Well, we do meatless Mondays in our household, but the reality is I've always cooked the meat on Sunday.
Oh, interesting.
I know. So it's kind of like a fake meatless Monday. But yeah, you got to be looking at this like you would running your household or your business. How do you do something once but pull it across?
Absolutely.
We don't have enough help. We have to do all this ourselves. So yeah, we need to make things multifaceted. Okay, let's get to Marianne from Bismarck, North Dakota. That just sounds cold.
I don't think it's always cold.
No, but it sounds cold. Okay, our board has really been successful in moving all meetings to Zoom. Yay, team. In fact, it seems that everyone is super happy about it. However, we have one board member who only wants to phone in. He's not very engaged, and I don't know how to remedy this. Marianne.
So I'm curious why that's a problem, the phone in, right? So I'm focused on he's not very engaged. So that therein lies the bigger problem. That's the issue. To me, I read this and I don't see the phone in is the issue. The lack of engagement is the issue. So I would recommend that you ask your board chair to have a one-on-one, perhaps phone conversation, if that's how this person is most comfortable, with the individual to ask, one, are they okay, right? The board chair has noticed the lack of engagement. So first and foremost, return on relationship. Are you okay? Is there anything we can do to help? We've noticed you haven't been as engaged, and just wanted to have a conversation with you about that.
I agree. First and foremost, what you just said is very, very important. This is the responsibility of the board chair, and not the CEO, not head of HR or the development officer. If those individuals are seeing a problem, then they have to go to the board chair, and that is what the board chair does. So when you have a board chair who doesn't like confrontation or can't carry through on this type of stewardship, that becomes another problem.
I don't see that as confrontation. This is
I know you don't.
Wax, right?
No, I know
that is direct communication, right? And so I think in our society, so many people are not comfortable with direct communication, and is perceived as confrontation. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I agree with you, sister. But the reality is that for a lot of people, that's going to be a tough call. And this is one of those things that these board chairs need to understand, that these are the things that they do.
That's their role. That's their role. And if they're not comfortable serving in that role, then perhaps she or they may not want to consider being the board chair.
Exactly. Because everything from, sorry, Sally, but you're talking too much during the meetings, or, Robert, why are you always showing up late? I mean, it's those things. It's the administrative aspect of running a meeting. So
now, you had a board liaison. What role do they play?
Board liaison. So that's a great question. And thank you for asking that, because, that's like one of my big passions. The board liaison should be the one that has to pick up the pieces in terms of instructing or directing, or like, board chair, I've been hearing about this a lot. I recommend that this happens. Can you call me or email me when this has been taken care of? And then they report back out and they're tracking it. But for the board liaison to actually make the call and get engaged in that way, no. It is the board chair. Now, the board liaison can be that person that says, yeah, we've had 7 meetings in the last 8 months and they haven't shown up. they've only come in by phone, whatever. They can help document what those pieces are, and that is what they should be doing. But to actually engage in that and correct that situation, no, board chair.
The other thing, and this might be quite basic, but I think sometimes we do need to go back to basics.
Yeah.
I was on a board meeting our board Zoom meeting, and I noticed that half of the individuals were showing video, half were not, right? And so I asked the board chair, what is their preference? And have they communicated that to the board? And so the next email that went out in preparation for the board meeting with the agenda and the entire packet said, for this meeting, we ask that everyone has their video on. And for me, I prefer video on as opposed to phone, because you can see when someone is about to talk, and that helps the talk over one another, right? Like and in Zoom, you get this beautiful green box around you. So for that reason alone, but again, what I'm seeing in this question that we received, Julia, is not so much the challenge in the phone, it's the challenge of the lack of engagement.
I agree. And I think that, we're all rowing in the same direction, or at least we're trying to. And this is one of those aspects of leadership. You've got to be able to face the reality of the situation, find out if it's something that it can be corrected or modified, or then you have to move on. I mean that.
So speaking of moving on, I'm not ready yet. I think that I'm not ready to move on with this yet. I also believe that difficult conversations should be done voice to voice. So if not face to face, voice to voice, right? So I just wanted to reiterate, like, this isn't an email opportunity. This is a voice to voice opportunity. And I'm putting up an old phone. I know they look differently these days, but yes, here's my phone. So I really think it's voice to voice. So don't try to bow out and not have a difficult conversation, or have a difficult conversation, I think is what I meant to say, via email. That's not the platform.
Right. Thank you for adding that. I absolutely agree. Okay, let's get to David in Topeka, Kansas. We have a modest give or get policy for our board members. We want to open ourselves to more board members with an eye towards diversity. Have you heard of excluding board members who can't afford this? Any suggestions?
Thank you, David. This came up in my conversation last night. I presented to a young professionals group, and it was all about board service, right? How do you join a board? What do you ask? And the give or get, first of all, was new for some individuals. And this one young woman, she said, I'm first generation, here in my family, immigrants, first graduate, first to really do any kind of community involvement or civic engagement. And I didn't know that I had to pay to play, essentially. And I said, that is fascinating. And I appreciate you bringing this up, because this also, David, I believe brings up a greater issue of what is their JEDI, concern: justice, equity, justice. I think I said that's wrong. Justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. So I like to say JEDI. Others you'll hear DEI. But really, when you look to diversify your board, you also want to look at diversifying it in a socioeconomic way. So a way that you might consider this, David, is your give or get policy. Instead of identifying a dollar amount, you could say something like, we are your top significant gift of your charitable contributions, right? So like, if an individual doesn't give regularly, and I was one of those, and sometimes am one of those when you look at the board makeup, but if I am giving you a very significant gift for where I am in my, life and everything else going on, it may not be the same. And I'm just going to point on you, Julia, that of what Julia's capacity is to give, but it does not make it insignificant, depending on the dollar amount. So that's a way that you might want to consider your language when it comes to that give or get.
Okay. So I don't ascribe to that. I think that it should be very specific, but I'm a lot meaner than you. Also, I think that you need to come up with a scholarship program.
Okay.
And you need to say, look, we have one scholarship a year. We have two scholarships a year. And you can fund that through other board members. I've been on boards where actually other board members scholarshiped in the Give or Get for other members, and or it comes out of the board dues because it is something that the board is saying, yeah, we want to make sure we get this DEI thing discussed. I like how you phrased Jedi. I think that's even more brilliant. But what it does when you scholarship somebody in is that I think it puts the onus on the other board members to realize that this give or get is somewhat of a sacred part, but it's also needs to be managed. And we have to educate and structure our boards to know how this works. And it also, I think for me, Jarrett, it dovetails into the fact that board members need to be involved in fundraising.
Yes.
They have to be.
They have to be involved. And just as I shared last night, one of the reasons that we nonprofits want 100% financial participation from our board is because many funding opportunities, proposals ask that. They will point blank ask, what percentage of your board also makes a charitable contribution? So we want to be able to say 100%.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And also, I think to your point, you could scholarship 75% of a give or get, or 50%, or 100%. You can make it to a level, right? So that you have some financial piece of this. I think this is also a great discussion for having a young board piece. So,
Absolutely.
Really important. And thank you, David, for sharing that. Hard to believe, but our time is up, my friend.
It is really up. And I know that we've got a couple of things to share before we wrap up the episode, but wow, it's been an amazing week. Thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you,
even though we don't always agree, I think we provide valuable, experience and insight to these topics. And I always come from a place of like, you have options, right? Here are your options. And I think we do help to provide that. So it's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It would be a boring world if we all agreed.
Yeah,
I think so. Hey, you've got 4 ways to get your questions to us. Send them on in. It's always a lot of fun. We want to hear what you're thinking, and we will do our darndest to get the answer. If we don't know, we know people who do know, and so we will track that down. We want to thank our presenting sponsors. Without you, we would not be here taking on all these questions. Thank you to the viewer that just wrote in. Another great show. Thank you. That's awesome. And I have to say, I don't think it was a family member. That's even better.
And my love language is words of affirmation. So you really filled up my cup on a Friday.
It's very nice. That's a great way to end the week. Hey, we want to let everybody know that we are going to be launching a new show, a second show called Fundraising Events TV. We'll be talking about that throughout the month. So stay tuned on that. Another fabulous week. Next week, going to be even bigger and better. So Jarrett, rest up because we have a busy week ahead of us.
Hey, Julia.
Yes.
Happy Mother's Day.
Oh my God, thank you.
That's this weekend. So happy Mother's Day to all of you that are watching this, recorded. And happy Mother's Day to my mom, because I see you. She's watching.
I think that's great. Well, happy Mother's Day to my mom as well. And to all your mothers. I think a lot of us are mothers of the nonprofit sector. And so it's an incredible thing that you do to serve our communities and our societies. So we thank you. And we want to end today with this mantra that we use all the time. Stay well so you can do well. Thank you so much, Jarrett. Have a restful weekend. We'll see you all back here on Monday.